Hello and welcome to our first session on chord melody. Many people associate chord melody with jazz guitar. However, the principles that we'll be covering in these sessions you can apply to any style of music. It's simply just a way of arranging harmony on the guitar fingerboard. And the thing to keep in mind that this is just one way that you can approach chord melody on the guitar. The idea is to use this information as a springboard for your own musical approach on the guitar. Now the scale we're going to use is a scale that you may already know. However, we're going to approach it in a slightly different way. Let's start at the beginning. I'm going to play a C major scale. C, D, E, F, G, A, B, C. Now if I add in a sharpened fifth note, in addition to the notes already in the C scale, creating a scale with these notes, C, D, E, F, G, G sharp, A, B, C, we would have a major bebop scale. The term bebop refers to a style of jazz music popular in the 1940s. The leading exponents of this style were people like Charlie Parker on saxophone and Dizzy Gillespie on trumpet, and a very important piano player called Bud Powell. In a general sense, Bud Powell's playing matched the feeling, imagination and virtuosity of Charlie Parker. And it's the style of chording that Bud Powell used or developed is what we'll be studying here in this session. Step one is we're going to take the major bebop scale and just think about it slightly differently. So instead of having the notes C, D, E, F, G, G sharp, A and B, we're just going to change the G sharp to an A flat. Of course, it's the same note. And we're going to name this scale the major sixth diminished scale. And now this is where the magic begins. If we look at the first, third, fifth and seventh notes of our new scale, we will see that it spells the notes of a C sixth chord. The notes of a C sixth chord are C, E, G and A. And now a really interesting thing happens when we create chords on the second degree of the scale. If we stack notes above the D in thirds, we would create a D diminished. Likewise, if we went to the fourth note in the scale, the F, and stacked notes in thirds above that, we would have an F diminished. And likewise, if we went to the A flat and stacked notes a third above it, we would have an A flat diminished. And once again, if we went to the B note and stacked the notes in thirds above the B, we would have a B diminished. Now, one of the keys to becoming really proficient on chord melody guitar is to understand how chords function in a particular musical setting. Now, if I go back to our scale and build different inversions of a C6 chord on the first, third, fifth and seventh degrees of the scale, and since the diminished chord can have several names, as many of you would know, any note under your fingers when you're playing a diminished chord shape on the guitar can be the name of the chord. So what I'm going to do here for simplicity is just simply think of all the diminished chords, that is the chords built on the second, fourth, sixth and eighth degrees of the scale. I'm just going to think of these chords as a B diminished seventh. So if I went through the chords in our scale, I could name the chords as follows: C6, B diminished, C6, B diminished, C6, B diminished, C6, B diminished. Now immediately you'll notice that we've created a completely new batch of chords than the traditional four-note chords. So whereas we normally would have C major 7th, D minor 7th, E minor 7th, F major 7th and so on, we now have a chord sequence where we're alternating between a C6 and a B diminished. And now is probably a good time to explain why we changed the G sharp to an A flat. As we said, it's the same note, but when we're thinking about this chord as being a B diminished 7th, the notes in a B diminished 7th would be B, D, F and A flat. And now let's move some of this information across to the guitar fretboard and see how this style of thinking will free up our guitar playing and help us create chord melodies on the guitar. So I'm going to start on the first string. I'm going to start on the note G. So I'm using our major 6th diminished scale, but I'm starting on the note G at the 3rd fret on the first string. G, A flat, A, B, C, D, and I'll finish on E at the 12th fret. And now we're going to take the chords that we were speaking about earlier and play them on the first 4 strings on the guitar. So we're going to create a string grid, and what we're looking at doing is creating a C6 chord under each of the chord tones. And the chord tones being C, E, G, and A. So the first thing I'm going to do is look at the G on the first string on the guitar and try and create a 4-note C6 chord. Now I could go and create a block chord, and that's a really cool sound, but some of the block chord voicing are quite hard to play on the guitar. So something that works really good when you're taking theoretical approaches from a keyboard standpoint of view and putting it onto the guitar is to use what we call a drop 2 voicing. And that simply means if you numbered the highest note in the chord, in our 4-note chord, as 1, the second note in the chord voicing 2, the third note down as 3, and the fourth note down as 4. If you drop the second note down an octave, you'll find you've got a very easy chord to play on the guitar. And that's what I'm going to do here. I'm going to take our block chord voicing for the C6. And now I'm just going to move the second note from the top down an octave, and then it will look like this on the guitar, this new voicing. So that's my drop 2 voicing for C6. Now since we're working with a 4-note chord, the C6 chord, and we're applying that to the first 4 strings on the guitar, we should have 4 different ways of playing the C6 chord on this string grid. That is the 1st, 2nd, 3rd and 4th strings of the guitar. And now I'll play the 4 C6 chords so you can hear how they sound. Now at the 5th fret, moving to the next one, and then one more. Now I realise of course that you may not be able to play the 4 inversions of the C6 chord on your guitar. It will depend of course on the style of guitar that you're playing. Just play what you can for the moment. The most important thing is to understand the theoretical concepts and how to apply them to the guitar fingerboard. Now after you've practiced the 4 inversions of the C6 chord and you're comfortable moving from one shape to the other, I suggest you practice along with me. Here we go. I'm going to play the inversions 4 times up and down the fingerboard. And so I hope you've got a lot out of this session. Part 2 in this series will look at how we incorporate the diminished chord with the C6 to establish a really smooth voice leading technique on the guitar. And so I look forward to catching up with you again next time. Bye for now.